Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for Lewis to come on board, and then we're just going to get right to it.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I woke up this morning, so
I
it's
know,
always
right?
always a chance. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Started off, a little slow for myself, but we're out here. we're doing
Of
it. We're doing
course,
what we
yeah,
can, right?
of course. That's what we do. So, um, I guess we should get
Awesome.
started, or how do you
Yeah.
want to do
So,
it?
welcome
So,
everyone to Aqui, Yeah. I'm Alexis De Jesus. I am a marketing and events specialist, coordinator, whatever you want to call me. That's my field. That's my industry, and I recently joined the tech industry as well, but have a lot of background in other industries. I'm going to pass it over to Lewis so he can do a little intro for himself as well.
thank you. Well, hello everyone. My name is Luis Martinez. I'm the founder and CEO of We the Plug, and so what we do is basically like we help Black and Latinx founders build companies, and so we do that through design thinking and code technology, and so that's what we're bringing to the table, and that's kind of what I do in design thinking and building and innovation, tech, that kind of thing. So that's kind of a little bit of my lane. So. But we'll get into the semantics in a bit. But first, want to welcome everyone that's joining us. Appreciate you guys stopping by. So, Alexis, let's talk about humble beginnings, right? So let's
Yeah.
start with where you from, where you grew up, and how was that like, and what role did the environment play on your output on life?
Sure. Yeah. It was so background. I'm Dominican. I identify as Afro Latina. And then I grew up in Howell, New Jersey. That is literally like coyotes and barns, and it's 88.7% Caucasian. So that's where I grew up. And so while I was down here in New Jersey, my family, all of my family lived in the Bronx. So my upbringing was a little bit different in the way because I was too white for my family, and then I was too black and ghetto for where I lived in Howell. So, and then while I lived in Howell, I only hung out with about, there was only, I could say 10 of us, 10 BIPOC. That was about it. And we stuck together. Like, didn't matter if I was a freshman and the other person was a senior or whatever. Like, we just stuck together in high school mainly, and even in middle school too. But yeah, it was definitely rough, just kind of, there was this big sense of identity crisis instilled in me ever since I was young, which is actually very, very sad and a lot more traumatizing than what people realize. And it affects your confidence in different ways that you can't even explain until you finally wake up and realize, like, oh my God, this is affecting me at my job, or this is affecting me at wherever. And it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, that's a quick synopsis of my upbringing. And I always also pushed myself to always be about every culture and to learn about every culture, because I didn't want to be that person that was like, yeah, like I'm this or that. Like, no, like I'm a big believer in learning and learning about other people's cultures, because I was pretty much like shunned on from, family or friends or whatever the case. But yeah, that's that. So Lewis, your turn. We're a little bit
Okay.
opposite. We're a little bit opposite, but kind of the same
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah, we definitely are. Mine's a little bit, well, obviously the opposite. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Brooklyn, and so my family is from Honduras. Parents is from Honduras, and um, I grew up in the projects. So I grew up pretty much that project life, that gutter life, and this was New York, like in the late 80s, early 90s kind of vibe. And so anyone that has grown up during that era knows that New York is not what it is now. Like, it's all nice and cleaned up and cute. And, people love to go to Brooklyn, but I'm like, I joke and tell them I'm from old Brooklyn. And I'm like, I'm from a different place in Brooklyn, particularly East New York, Brooklyn, which it's kind of still the same. A little bit better than it used to be, but it's the same. And so in my household, we primarily we spoke Spanish and we spoke Garifuna. And so, I grew up. It's funny. I grew up very insular to my culture within the confines of my family, and so we went through a lot of culture, customs. We practiced it and did all that. But once I went outside of that, right now I'm living in the projects. I'm mostly hanging around, African American folks, and so that's what I gravitated to because I said, hey, look, I'm one of you guys. We got the same skin color. I'm probably darker than a lot of you, so that's how I took that. And so as time went along, that's where the confusion came in, right? Where okay, yeah, this is my culture, but it's not my culture. And so it's funny as I've gotten older, I started to realize the differences in thought. And so it wasn't really until my 30s I realized, oh, I see why. Like we have different values, and it comes from that. Not to say that anything is good or bad, but just the values is different. And so there was always that case of being too black for the Latinos and being too Latino for the blacks. And so there's always that weird space, even to this day when I go to like different Latinx events. Believe it or not, like I'll go to the local chamber of commerce where I live in San Diego, and they kind of give me a certain weird look, because they look at my name, look at me. And so for folks out on the West Coast, they're not used to people like you and me, which is interesting. And so that's just the dynamics out here. But if you go to the East Coast, there are more of us than anything else. So it's kind of a weird it's a weird situation. But I used to feel bad about it, or I used to feel some kind of way. Now I don't even care anymore. Like I just have that I don't even care attitude. Like it is what it is. So either you gonna accept it or you not gonna accept it. So
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that. I think that's kind of what comes with it, right? After all these years, you're like, all right, like whatever. You put this kind of defense mechanism up, this wall up, where you're just like, it is what it is. Like you either accept me or you don't. I'm not gonna over explain who I am or whatever the case. So at the end of the day, you don't have to, right? Like that's just because people want to. I think like mentally, behavioral wise, they want to place you in a certain like category so that they can identify, I guess, with you or not with you. Does that make sense? So
oh, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, like there are people that I know, who, you know, you know, let's say Johnny Ventura. Like I know who he is, but I also want to listen to Wu Tang and Biggie. Like that's just the culture I came from. So I can do both. I can listen to both. I can do all that. So it's funny how people try to put you in a box, but they really can't. Like what I'm saying? And it's weird, especially when you're dealing with as I like to call them, blanquitos. That's my personal favorite name. When you're dealing with blanquitos, they have this weird vibe and they can't put you in that box because in one instance, you're dealing with one community and in the other you're dealing with, the Latinx community. So it's just like, wow, he's in very different facets. So I can't really put him in a certain box. So I find it fascinating and sometimes I laugh because I think it's funny. So
which it is. And I think it makes people uncomfortable because they can't put you in a box. It all goes back to that whole behavioral thing. Like they can't place you, so it just makes them uncomfortable. And it's like it's my fault at the end of the day.
but I love that though. That's the weird part about it. I love the uncomfortableness, like from them. Like I really thrive off of that. And so I would encourage people, listen, if you're gonna go into a room that that more than likely either you're gonna be the only person in there or it's gonna be you and somebody else, then you might as well stand all the way out. That's just my philosophy. So I'm gonna stand all the way out because I'm gonna go in there. You know, I don't have a, how do I say this, a passive um, personality per se, right? And you know, people know probably even if I'm professional and in a certain setting, they know, oh yeah, he's not from the burbs, like, you know what I mean? He's a little, rough around the edges. So I can't hide that. That's who I am. And so a lot of people, they feel some kind of way about that. And I'm just gonna just display it, and usually they feel uncomfortable, and I get a kick out of that because I don't want to go into a room feeling uncomfortable. So I'm going to stand all the way out. So that's usually my advice for people who usually feel uncomfortable in those settings, whether it's from a leisure standpoint or from a professional standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best way to go about it. And not to sound basic, right? But like you're staying true to your authentic self. Oh, I hate that phrase. I feel like that phrase, stay authentic. I feel like that's so overused at this point. But at the same time, there's a lot of relevance to it. But yeah, no, I think it's the best to do so, especially like, transitioning into like this tech world. I didn't realize, one, it's male dominated, right? So that's a struggle for me at least. And then it's, a lot of Caucasian. and and you would think that personally, like me growing up in a white community, that I would have adjusted to it, right? But the truth of the matter is that I'm not adjusted to it. Like I think it's insane how much of a margin there is, and it is uncomfortable. And I applaud you for going into the room and being like, nah, like I'm gonna make you feel uncomfortable, but that is not instilled in me. As much as I'm extroverted, I can also be very introverted. So it gets a little tough. So how do you, I guess, mentally prepare yourself, knowing like, you're obviously gonna be like, I don't know, pitching or trying to, raise funds or whatever the case, or um what are tools that you do within your mind, like to prepare yourself?
Well, I will say this. I'm a little bit crazy. So, you know, but the other part is that, I grew up with a very strong parents. They were very strong, and they raised me kind of cold blooded to a to a fault. And so I say that to say that when I first actually entered the tech space, I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna try to do this. Whatever. I didn't at the time. I didn't know that I was gonna build We the Plug. I didn't know. I just knew that it was a space that was interesting to me, and I liked it. I said, oh, I want to be a part of it. At this time, I was doing a little bit of customer discovery, trying to figure out my lane. But when I decided to go into it, and I first was volunteering for local startup organizations locally where I live, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go into this. They're not going to accept me, or they're going to throw microaggressions at me. And I accepted that. So what that did was so when the situation comes up, I didn't like buckle under the pressure, because a lot of times that's what they want you to do. And they want to be like, see, that's that person. He's from the projects. He doesn't know how to conduct himself, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want that, because what's going to happen is the next person is going to come behind me, and they're going to shut the door before they even, hear what that person has to say. So I took it upon myself, you know what? I got to eat the bullets. I got to be the martyr per se, for others, and I can take it. So when I got in there was some microaggressions. There was a one situation where um, we were a leadership group preparing for our startup week. So I was on the committee, like putting the sessions together, and this one person basically kept taking all the sessions. Like he was putting his people in the sessions and all that stuff. And so when we had our Tuesday meetings or Monday meetings or whatever, people were complaining about it, but it was like in the water cooler talk. Like they wouldn't say it out loud, but like maybe on one-on-one conversations, or we would go, obviously, they call it the water cooler talk, where people feel some kind of way, but they won't say it, in a meeting setting to where we can implement change. And so one thing about me, I don't get down like that. Like if you feel some kind of way, like we're gonna talk about it or we're gonna come to some kind of solution. And I got tired of it and I put them on blast in front of everybody. I was like, look, this is the situation, and blah blah blah. And I admit I was a tad bit aggressive. I will say that, but I got my point across, and I garnered a lot of respect because I went about it in a very direct manner. Now, did I care if they liked me per se? Not necessarily, but I wanted to get respect. And so respect I got, and it pushed me forward to do the other things that I was able to do. So that's just one situation where I told myself, you're gonna go through situations. When you're doing something that you've never done before, and not forget individual. We're talking about as a collective. We're talking about as, you know, you know, Afro, folks of Latin descent or people of color in general, however you want to phrase it. When you're collectively doing something that's different, initially there's going to be pushback. That's human nature. Let's just start there. That's human nature that there's going to be pushback because people's like, well, no, we like our little, area, or we like our people the way it is. Like we don't want it to be we don't want it to look different, right? That's a natural thing, right? That has nothing to do with necessarily color or who you are, where you come from. But once you mix that in there, now it becomes like, oh, like now you don't want these people to come and override it because, to be quite frankly, like a lot of us are more talented than they are. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. Like you give us a chance to become C-suite or become leaders in these companies. You watch how quickly like we take the manna and we run with it. We're just wired different. So
I agree. I feel like we actually, have like a lot more to prove. And yeah, it's first of all, that's wild. I have a question though. You said that you just came at them aggressively or whatever the case before, just kind of hopping back.
mm-hmm.
How I think it's kind of annoying, right? Like how you have to almost fit into the narrative of what they're already thinking, right? Like I don't know about you per se, right? But if I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. I'm very out there. I love laughing or whatever the case. But as soon as I just hit a level and I'm like, okay, this is it, I'm starting to get upset. Like I just go monotone. But if I raise a voice or seem a little snippy, I'm automatically aggressive. Or the angry Latina or the angry Black girl or the angry whatever, or the spicy Latina, whatever it is, that's automatically what I'm going with. So how annoying is it that you have to still get to that level for people to respect you?
Yeah, it is annoying. I think it's unnecessary, but I mean, it is. It's really unnecessary. It's things that you don't want to have to go through, but sometimes that's what's called for. When you talk nice and you say, well, okay, I've done this several times and I've mentioned this to you and you're ignoring me and whatever. And you get to a point where it's like, okay, now I gotta put foots in people's asses, but you do it respectfully and professionally. And so that's what I did. And I was very assertive in what I was trying to say and what the point was. And even when you're professional and assertive, like people still gonna feel some kind of way about it. That's just what it is. Everyone is not going to be pleased with, maybe how you came at them or just your presence. And so again, that's where the whole, if you're going to be different or if you're going to be the only one in the room, then you might as well stand all the way out. Like I'm going to go full forward into it. And so even though I am by nature introverted, I like to be in my corner and that's it. But if I have something to say and it's worth saying, then I'm going to say it. And there are people that may not like how I say it or even what I'm saying, but I don't really care about feelings. I care about results. And so that's what it's about. So if you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. But that's me.
Right.
I wouldn't, a lot of people are afraid to because of they don't want to lose what they have, right? And I get that to an extent. But when is enough enough? Where is the line being drawn where it's like, okay,
Mm,
like this is going
boundaries.
exactly, you know?
Yeah.
So now I will say this. There are some fights not worth fighting for. Some things you could just be like, even I just go, okay, like cool, like whatever. That's fine. Let them have that. But it's about results and winning the war and not necessarily winning every battle. And that's something that I struggled with in my teens and throughout my 20s and early 30s, where like I always wanted to win the battle and end up losing the war. And now I realize, no, it's about winning the war, not the battles. So
Mm. Snaps. I wish there was like GIFs in here that we can just send you like fire GIFs or GIFs and like snapping emojis because
so
that's what's up.
So I want to start with this question to you though about
Yeah.
just we're on the topic about culture fit, right? And there's this like crazy like narrative about being a culture fit, which I can't stand. I hate that term because culture is subjective to one's environment. I think we can all agree on that to some extent. And you know, again, like there's this narrative to fit into this, blanquito culture of we do things this way, and you know, you got to do it, and that's it. Now, even you and me, if we go into a place where, and this is obviously pre-COVID, but if we go into an office where, it's you're the only one of color, or I'm the only one of color, or in my case, a lot of times I've been in offices where there have been several people of color, but I don't necessarily relate to them. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, they're talking about reruns of Clueless. I'm gonna talk about probably like I remember in Menace to Society. I'm probably gonna quote lines in the conversation. That's just me and how I grew up. So, when you're the only one or the only one in the office you could relate to, if they ask you to you're going to go out for drinks or something, you're not necessarily going to be inclined to go and feel comfortable, especially in certain situations as a woman. Like you're not just going to be like, yeah, sure, like, and you're going to be like, okay, like it's just me and a bunch of white people, and I don't know how they're going to deal with it, and I don't. And then there's the issue of like, okay, if I take a drink in front of them, are they gonna see me differently? In which I try to avoid that at all costs. Like I don't do that, in a corporate setting. I avoid that at all costs. But isn't that annoying to you?
Yeah, I feel like so that was definitely a learning experience for me. Within my last like 10 years of marketing and events. So being an event, it's really hard. Just I'm going to touch really quickly on the drinking thing or drinking in front of coworkers or whatever, right? So in the beginning when I was younger, I had I had one of the coolest jobs ever. like I did marketing and events for a booze cruise company that went around New York, and it was awesome. Like I'm like telling you, like 1,200 people concerts on like huge yachts. So there was drinks flowing always or whatever, and some of those times got stressful, and some of the other times just they were not stressful, but because alcohol was free for me, I just went for it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if I could tell my younger self not to do that, like I would have, because now within my last like my current job and my last job, I don't drink, just because people are always watching, and it's so dangerous. Um, you know, being being black or Latina or even Asian or whatever the case, or an Asian Latino, whatever you are, it's so dangerous because people are always watching you. Um, and they can be all buddy buddy with you, but they're still watching you, right? And they still want something to have on you so that they can use for it in the future. And that was definitely a tough lesson for me. So I don't drink in front of people. I don't, and if I do, it's one beverage. But yeah, again, going to that boundaries thing, like I just put boundaries up. Like I don't want to. Like, and if I don't want to go out for a drink, it doesn't matter if you're a coworker or a friend or family member. I'm at this point in life where if I don't want to, I don't want to. Like I am tired and I don't feel the need to explain myself. And that's been like a constant word for me in my life lately.
Mm-hmm.
The tendency that I have personally to over explain, right? And I feel like my over explaining actually stems from my identity crisis growing up. I was constantly trying to prove to my family and friends why I wasn't the white girl or whatever the case. And then where I grew up, I was over explaining to them why I wasn't this ghetto, like Black girl, Latina girl, whatever. So like it stems from that, and it's super frustrating. And it's a word that continuously pops up, like even today for me, like you don't need to over explain it. I'm like, it's literally embedded in me, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying my hardest. And it, like, my quest actually started with that specific thing, like drinks. Like, do you want to go out for drinks, or do you want to hang out today? Or no, I don't. Or do you want to grab a drink or go to a bar with me and a couple coworkers after? No, I don't. That's it. Like, I don't need to explain myself because I don't want to. Like, leave me alone. Like, you know what I mean? So it's definitely, yeah. So, and stemming off from that too, like being a culture fit, like because you don't go out with your coworkers or you don't, socialize as much right now in the pandemic that we're in, I would say like it's been hard, right? Even for me as an extroverted introvert or whatever the case, like I'm going to things in person now kind of because I have to, because I'm so new to the tech industry and I don't know as many people as I do in other industries. I'm being forced to go out. So I'm kind of like pushing back on my own boundaries in regards to like the going out with coworkers or whatever. But I still do it at a bare minimum, right? Because I don't want to oversimplify it, overdo giving people other energy, especially to like your coworkers that you really don't see as much, or depending on if office is open or whatever the case. But yeah, that's been a definite struggle for me personally. And seeing if I am fit for this world and this industry, and just even in I was in the law industry prior, and seeing if I was a culture fit for that, like I wasn't, and it's hard. I think once you admit to yourself, like, all right, like I'm not fit for this, like, and that's okay. You have to accept it. Then it's okay to just continue on. I know, like, if you're not happy in a place, right? This is like a little side note in general, but like if you're not happy with where you are, right? And I'm talking about job wise, company wise, whatever the case, right? Yeah. Specifically job and company, like you are not obligated to stay there, right? Because if you know that you're not fitting in or you're not culturally fit or whatever for your, and you're not agreeing with your workplace culture in general, like people are like, they're stuck in this mindset where like, but this is where I'm at right now. Like, I don't know where else to go or whatever the case. Like, no, like you have so many other options. You're not happy. Like, it's okay. There's so much out there. It's not even funny. And people are like, no, but not really. No, there is. Like, you're going to find the right culture fit for you as long as you do your research and you keep going. And, you talk to people. You don't have to network constantly, like every day. No, like once or twice a week, like check in with the person that you spoke to and had a conversation with from a month ago. Like, who cares? They're going to remember you as long as you put that work forth, but you're not stuck in that organization. Like you can keep going. Like, it's okay. So whoever's feeling like that and feeling stuck or whatever, like just keep that in the back of your mind. Like they are gonna let go of you if you mess up for one thing. So
yes, they
like,
are.
just keep it trucking. Just keep it trucking, and instill that in your mind. Like, even if you've been happy at your organization for 5 years, who cares? Like, keep applying to other places because you never know what might fit you better.
Yeah, thank you for that. Like, because they're definitely not gonna have loyalty for sure. I actually want to kind of get back to what you were saying about the networking thing, and I do have a solution to that. kind of a so I know Francis in the chat, she said she could relate as someone who works in tech doing events. So this is what I do. This is just me. You can follow it, don't follow it, but this is what I do. So before, people, especially like managers and C-suite folks, they put emphasis on you being seen. And this is what I've learned. And of course, this is for me, like, getting fired several times as well. But they put an emphasis on you being seen. And I didn't know what that meant. And me being an introvert, I always took the notion of, I just want to do my job and go about my business. And there's a little politics that are involved in it. So what I would start doing, right, is I would show face, meaning I would go to an event. I would say hello to who I need to say hello to. I would maybe in my mind or jot it down here, I would be like, okay, there's 3 or 4 people that I need to talk to, right? There may be one person. There's 2 people that I need to let them know that I'm there without being there. So you go to them and you say, hey, what's going on? This is great. You do all the small talk crap or whatever. You may need to go there to talk to 1 or 2 people. You do that. You go to the bar. Hey, let me get some ice water. Let me get that in your cup. You walking around. You do your 15 half hour to 30 minutes. You say your hellos and you keep it pushing. If you feel uncomfortable walking out look at the surroundings, go to the bathroom, and then make your exit stage left. And that's what I've done. So you can do that. I advise everyone, if you do feel that, hey, I would go with that advice. You completed your mission. You talk to the people you need to talk to, and voila, you're done.
That's that good old Irish goodbye. Say what's up to everyone, and then you just exit stage left real quick. Don't tell nobody.
And people are going to be so in the midst of having conversations and having a good time that they're going to remember that you were there, but it's going to be like this, and you haven't sacrificed anything. You haven't had any real conversations, and people are not knowing your business. You're just showing up. You're doing your 30 minutes and you're keeping it pushing. That's it.
Ooh,
so
boundaries. 30 minutes. That's it. I'm out after that.
It's work in the room. And I always, when I'm out networking, that's the one thing I do. Like, I make sure that people are gonna be there who I want to talk to, who's kind of maybe difficult to get on email or whatever, social media. Have conversations with them, set up meetings, get them right there, and keep it pushing. So
that's fair. I like building though and talking to people about nonsense. So I might stay a little bit longer than 30 minutes, but I'll try.
It depends on who you're talking to now, but yeah, I could do that as well. Like, if I'm having a good time and it's a good conversation, yeah, I'll stay and we'll have that dialogue. But for the most part, if there's a bunch of squares in the room, nah, I'm look in the room and be like, yeah, I'm gonna just say my what's ups, get some cards, get some emails or whatever, and keep it pushing. So
that's fair. I'm still, like I said, I'm very new to this industry, and it's actually kind of interesting how many people are sociable and how many people are not. I feel like sometimes I'm having conversations with robots. I'm like,
yeah.
I was at an event yesterday, and I was like, whoa. I was like, what's happening? It's tough. It's tough, but it's fun. It's fun
not to pick on engineers, but they're the number one victims in this. Just putting it out there. A lot of them, you talk to them.
We love you, engineers. Regardless, we love you guys.
Love you, but like sometimes it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely difficult to talk to you guys, but nevertheless, but we do love you for real. But yeah. So I want to transition into another question I have for you.
Did you freeze or did I freeze?
people of color, Latinx folks becoming a, huh?
Sorry, I think I froze. I didn't hear what you said. Did you ask the question already?
Oh, no, I didn't ask yet.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just transitioning into another question. So obviously, like there are people, I don't know if you're getting this. I know I'm definitely getting this, but um, extracurricular kind of requests, like out of, scope of work, right? And, even if you're working for a company, they may ask you to work on a project or something or a side thing or whatever. Or, you have your own thing going on and a company comes and, they want to work with you doing this. How do you approach that? Because especially from big wig companies that they have all this money and opportunities, and I'm just like, okay, it's time for you guys to pay up and pay for what people's time and energy and talent are. Because I had this issue, kind of give you a little backstory. When I first started in this space, I think for the first 2 years, I didn't want to ruffle feathers. So anything that came, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll speak at this and I'll speak at that. And that's a good thing when you're trying to get your name out there and you're trying to do different things, right? But then you get to a point where, okay, you're looking at your light bill, you're looking at your rent, you're like, okay, it's not going to pay itself, you know.
I think you're muted. I think you muted yourself.
Oh, wow, I did mute myself. That's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what I was saying.
Yeah, I feel like so specifically with the all the movements that have been occurring, specifically like DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's been like a huge thing, which is awesome. I love it, and I'm here for it. And I remember when I first got asked to, partake in, surveys and in the actual committee or whatever the case was, and this was in previous jobs. I was offended. I was like, I've been trying to tell you guys about these things going on, and now you want to listen up. The whole world is in chaos and blowing up, right? I was so mad. I was like, but at the same time, like I knew that I needed to do it because of the specific location that I was at. And I know that even though they're starting late, it's better late than never. But I also, like, my personal thing is to hold people accountable, right? Like you're saying you want to start something, go through with it. Especially if it's something that's like affecting the world or whatever the case. And I accepted that knowing that I wasn't going to get an extra form of pay. But that was just in my own, like, change the world notion, right? Like that's what I wanted to do because I wanted to do it. But again, like I think this topic, this word boundaries just keeps popping up. Like if you're sick of it, you put that boundary up and you're like, no, I'm no longer doing this anymore, or no, I'm no longer translating for you, or no, I'm no longer doing whatever, right? Because you have every right to say no, and you don't even have to explain yourself. Again, there's me again over explaining. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to, right? There's other people that do stuff and they don't have to explain. They just don't do it. So when it comes to extracurricular activities, including DEI, I'm an advocate for it. I want to support if there's a company that's culturally fit for me and really wants to do something about it. And as long as there's action behind it, I am more than glad to provide support and be part of like committees or whatever the case. But if you're saying you want to start something and you don't, that's where my issue lies. And no, I won't be joining your committee of changing the world or planting trees when you say you're going to plant trees and you're not, like, whatever the case. So that's how I feel about it. And I know that you feel, I guess, kind of the same, right?
Like, yeah, I'm a little more probably militant when it comes to that in certain ways. So I have a quick DEI story. So I was working. This is this year actually, for an organization. We shall remain nameless. If you guys go on my LinkedIn, you could probably figure it out. But so they said to me that they wanted to do a couple things with DEI, whatever, within the scope of my job description, which I was okay with, right? That's fine, because um, they wanted to bring in, minority companies that were owned by minority entrepreneurs. Okay, cool, fine. Where it kind of got where it got murky, I guess, is they had their own committee for DEI or whatever, and I automatically got put into it, and wasn't discussed. Okay, what am I doing on this committee? What is the goal? None of that. So I was told prior, like, okay, this is not going to be. I'm not going to be part of this. So, oh, no, that's a it's a committee. So when you think of committee, you're thinking like it's a choice. Like, okay, I have a choice to be part of a committee and to put in my valuable time into this committee, right? But no, they put me in there, and they went like maybe 3 sessions. I think they had a session or a meeting probably either once a week or once every 2 weeks. I don't exactly recall, but I missed like 3 of them. And they finally hit me up and was like, hey, because it was all virtual. Why are you going to these meetings? What meetings? Oh, the DEI. I'm sorry, I'm a part of that committee. I didn't know that there was
Yikes.
it wasn't a choice. So then we had a sidebar conversation with Brass about their they had a vision for me to be put in that position. So I'm like, wait a minute.
It's
So
because you're the token Latino, token
there you
black guy.
go. There you
You're
go.
just everything in a bunch. So they were like, let's just automatically shove Lewis into our committee.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly what happened. And I was like, no, no, we're not doing this. And again, mind you, it was a quick thought, but I had to make a decision real quick. And once we had that conversation, once he said that, I was like, okay, either I'm going to fight this battle or I'm not going to fight this battle. And I chose, you know what, I need to fight this battle. Because one, you can't just, a committee, mind you, you can't just throw me in a committee and not have a conversation with me about, what are the goals, what are the objectives, and what are the outcomes, especially if I'm the only person of color on this committee. Like, I find that a bit obviously offensive, and they try to put me as a token.
Of
So,
course.
I was just like, no, and like they were like they weren't moving off the mental until I brought up the mental health aspect. And I'm like, look, this is the mental health aspect for me. I'm already doing other things, fighting that battle. I don't need this to be added on there, So they finally took me off, right? They're like, okay, fine, we'll leave you off. But I don't know if that was they took that personal, or that's something that was seen as a rebellious act. I don't know, but you know, I'm not there anymore. Let's put it that way. So,
well, that's good.
you know, but you can't. You have to certain things. You have to fight for it. You just can't let things like that happen. And I advise anyone, hey, if we're doing this diversity inclusion stuff, like, what is the goals? What is the objective? Do you want a photo op, or are you actually implementing, laws, or that's not the word I was looking for, but resources to help whoever it is that you're trying to help. So,
yeah. I think our time is actually coming to an end. It's already 2:30. So whoever has questions, we didn't have time for questions and answers, but please feel free. I'm going to drop my LinkedIn real quick. And if you guys want to connect, like, please do so.
I will drop mine as well.
Second. I'm always open to discussing whatever the case. My computer's going slow. This is awesome. It's my favorite.
Of course. Happens at the most opportune time.
Mine isn't even loading. It's awesome. I'm here for it. But are companies ever honest about just wanting a photo op? No, that's the marketing aspect, Alejandra. That's the marketing aspect. No, companies are never honest about wanting a photo op. They want to make good reasons for it. So no.
No.
Yeah. My LinkedIn, my computer isn't working, but feel free to add me and connect with me. And
you know what?
I don't mind, or whatever the case. Go ahead, Lewis.
You know what? I'm gonna put this in the chat too. As a matter of fact, like, I mean, hold on a second. Give me 2 seconds, and I'll put this in there. So I recently did
You recently did what?
Oh yeah, I recently did a session with a couple other folks in the Latinx space, and I mean, we were talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and the comments were very interesting to say the least. But I'll put that video in the chat, folks, to kind of, it's on Facebook, so people can check it out.
Also, I don't know if you identify yourself, Lewis, as Afro-Latino. I know I do.
I do,
Latina, yeah. But Techqueria has their Afro-Latino cafecito. I think it's like once a month. So everybody, make sure you head over there and peep that, because there's some nice people and good combos flowing. That was actually my first Techqueria event ever, and it was lovely and marvelous. So make sure you join that, even if you don't define as Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino or Latinx, whatever the case, like, just go for it. The more faces, the better, so you can learn other people's experiences. But again, Lewis, do you have any last things to say? Because
no, just everybody, just thank you for joining us and appreciate the conversation, Alexis.
Of course, thank you, Lewis, and I hope everyone enjoyed our session, ni de aquí ni de allá. It was awesome, and I'm very blessed for the opportunity. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.